Welcome to the Uncollared podcast. I'm Father Jason.
And I'm Frank Fontana. And on this show, we believe there's something powerful in the search for the truth.
No topic is too big or too small. No questions are off limits.
And that is a good thing because I like to question everything.
So settle in and join us for some laughs and some deep thoughts and
maybe even some enlightening moments here and there.
We sure hope so.
Yeah.
This is the Uncollared
podcast.
Frank, you're always looking good, man.
Thanks, buddy. I got the, what did our director of photography, Lance, call this my Canadian tuxedo?
Canadian tuxedo. There you go. You just need like a little axe or hatchet to go with
some
it.
boots. Yeah. Chop down some trees in the yard.
Yeah. That's good. Hey, so question today is, I think there's a movie based off of it called Seven, but it's based off of something called the Seven Capital Sins.
Is it seven capital or seven deadly sins?
I think all the above. I think all of them are acceptable.
Yeah.
Have you heard of them? Do you know anything about them? Do you believe in them? Where are you at with this?
So, Father, have I heard of them? Well, back in the day, I was in the nightclub business.
Oh,
when I was young, when I was very young, and I used to be one of the most prolific party throwers in South Florida.
Okay.
So we would take me and my partner would take over nightclubs, and we would throw these theme parties. And ironically,
I don't know why I'm smiling, but anyways,
I
should be like, no, this is bad.
No, it wasn't bad. Well, maybe it could have been bad. It depends on how you look at it. One of our biggest, most successful party themes was what? What do you think it was?
The
seven deadly sins. And each week we would alternate the sin from gluttony, like whatever. I can't even remember all of them now.
Okay.
So, and it was the most. So when you said we're going to talk about this today, I was like, do I know about it?
You know,
I actually threw parties around every single sin you can imagine.
So this is my first question: is why is it? Why? Well, we know that there's something bad about it because they're deadly.
Yes.
But there's something attractive about it, right? Like there's something,
think so.
Right?
Yeah.
So
some of them. I mean, gluttony.
Well, okay, so
sloth. I mean, right? Is like that one of them?
So yeah, let me name. Why
don't you rattle them off?
Yeah, let me rattle them off. So for the audience, the easy way that I remembered them was the acronym EGG SLAP.
EGG SLAP.
So EGGSLAP. Let's see if you can figure them out. E, I'll start you off. E is envy.
Envy,
and then G. So G is
gluttony. There's another G?
Yeah.
Greed.
Greed.
Okay, yeah,
so
greed, of course.
Envy, gluttony, greed. S
is sloth.
Sloth. L
is lust.
Lust. A
is aggressiveness.
Anger,
yeah.
And then P is the biggest of them all,
which is
pancakes. Pride.
Oh yeah. It's all coming back to me now. Yeah.
So Saint Ignatius takes these seven. It's been part of the Catholic tradition for a while to describe these things because the flip of them are virtues that the church has asked us to work on for years and generations.
For people to avoid as a rule of thumb?
Yes. So early in the Catholic Church, sin has always been in every culture, but virtue is sort of a new pedagogy.
Okay.
And so ever since the early Catholic Church existed, we've always wanted the people to focus more on the virtue than the vice. So these seven vices are just a way to describe, like, for example, pride. The opposite, the virtue of that is humility. So we work on that. Gluttony, abstinence, learning how to control yourself. Lust, modesty. That's why the women veil themselves and keep yourself well dignified. But anyways, an easy way to remember the seven, Saint Ignatius, he lived in I think you'd like this saint actually. He was a soldier. He was a soldier, and he started the Jesuits. Obviously, you know about the Jesuits.
A controversy around those guys.
Yeah, exactly. But he summarized them into three. So the three big ones are pride, vanity, and sensuality. So he sort of groups.
The most powerful ones, it
Yeah,
sounds like.
yeah. For example, the sensuality would include gluttony and lust. Those, sloth, I guess you could say. Those three would be in sensuality.
Yeah.
So, why are these vices or these you through parties? Everyone sort of loves them, like.
Yeah.
So the question is like, why is it so attractive? Like someone who's proud is so ambitious. There's something cool about having power and authority. Yeah. Right, vanity. We want. You did a
workout. I was a bodybuilder. I competed.
Something good about that.
I do think it's like sugar or like anything in moderation could be okay for you.
Okay.
So a little bit of pride can actually go a long way in achieving a goal, right? A little bit of lust can help you move towards the woman you want to marry, because you lust after them.
Yeah.
And then you fall in love after that because it always starts with lust. It never starts with love, right? Vanity. Vanity drives people to want to look good. Do people take it to the extreme? Totally. As a matter of fact, I actually, maybe about 15 years ago, did a documentary called Lords of Esteem. And it was all about...
Lords of Esteem?
Lords of Esteem.
Oh, esteem. Okay. Esteem.
And what it was following 5 top plastic surgeons across the country and focusing on their patients as to why they would undergo such extreme procedures to alter their looks to be accepted, to feel better, to whatever it was. And what we found at the root of it all, because my number one question is, are you doing this for vanity?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is this a vain thing that's driving you to change your appearance to look better, to please who? Your husband? The other women in your circle? The women at church?
Yeah.
Because, there's a couple women at church that, get the big lips.
Yeah.
And, it's...
I don't notice that
appearances.
I'm focused.
You got to stay focused.
I got to stay focused.
You should. But, so I do believe what we found in the documentary was like it was driven by personal vanity.
Okay.
So there is some obviously validity to that being too much, but I like I said, I think a little bit sprinkled in can actually be great agitators and motivators for good at some time. So maybe there was some basis in history that warrants that explanation.
Yeah, I believe so. The reason I bring this up is because in sort of the Catholic circle, we often just hear about the sin, but not the power behind it.
Sure.
So Saint Ignatius develops this type of program. He calls it like this program of life or like a reform of life based off of who you are. So the way that God created you, some people are more they're prone to pride. They're prone to sensuality. They're prone to people's opinions. Is that wrong? There's no sin in that. But instead of focusing on we should focus on the power of it. So that's why these things are attractive, and they should be, because it's in a certain sense godly. So let me put this. So someone who has, as sort of a spiritual record, someone who has tendencies of pride, someone who they normally are the smartest ones in the room. Proud people become very impatient very quick. Why? Because your IQ is above the rest. So you're going to be impatient with everyone around you.
Right.
So is
that a traditional quality of somebody with a lot of pride?
Yes. Lack of patience.
Really?
If someone says, "Hey, Father, I always fail in pride," I'm like, "Well, you're probably pretty smart." That's what I normally tell them.
Sometimes as the opposite. I see sometimes with a lot of people with a lot of pride. Sometimes they're very ignorant, right? Because they're that's what they're living on is their pride, not their common sense, not their strength, but their pride drives them.
I would call that stubbornnness, not pride.
Yeah.
Like they're staunch on an idea, and they don't want to let go. That's maybe more strong willingness than a true sense of pride. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. No.
But anyways, I'm explaining the theory a little bit of sort of Saint Ignatius. So the flip side of pride is they can become very arrogant then. They just do things and it can just consume them. So a vain person normally is someone on a good, let's say in a good way. A vain person is someone who considers everyone else a little bit or their opinion. That's the negative side. The flip side to that is that they're very socially aware. They have very high, they know what's going on. They identify with people's feelings better. They're cunning.
So vain people identify with better people.
Yes,
Really?
they're more susceptible.
Yeah.
They're more understanding.
Or self-conscious.
Or
Right?
that's the negative side to it.
Yeah.
So and then the last one, sensuality, like they're lazy, they don't perform well. But on the flip side, like they're the ones that know how to chill.
Wait,
They're the funnest ones in the room.
wait.
They're relaxed.
People with sensuality are lazy.
As their main tendency.
Are lazy?
Yes.
How does that correlate?
Well, sensual people, they want to do things in their own way according to how they feel.
How are you framing sensual? Because what I think of it is a completely different thing.
Okay, so by sensual I mean someone. So by these 3 points, it's what's their main motor. Like so I'm going to confess here on public. Like my main dominant defect is sensuality. But do you see me as a sensual person?
Well, Father. Now that you brought it up,
mention it, yeah.
I mean, you
but
are
like
handsome.
I do enjoy fine things. Like I do enjoy a nice meal. Like a proud person, they can do that too. But like they're like, okay, what's the next on my schedule?
I don't put that in the sensual category though.
What's that?
That you like nice things. I say it's more vanity.
To enjoy nice things, like a nice meal.
Box it under sensual? No, I think that's more.
What would you put that under?
Gluttony.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So gluttony falls a little bit under the sensual. That's I'm saying, like Saint Ignatius.
Yeah.
He divides these into like 3 boxes.
Yeah.
And so sensuality encapsulates all those areas of lust and gluttony and those things, those tendencies. It doesn't mean we're not supposed to identify ourselves with our defects. That's not who we are. Like that's not how we were created.
No.
We're created, but we live in this broken world, and that's how we are. So the attractiveness is where we need to empower that area. So let's say it is vanity. Well, if you have that as your drive of like considering and thinking what other people think all the time, okay, let me see if I could use that for the good.
Yeah.
Like a proud person is very goal driven. They have schedules, they have programs and methods of obtaining that.
Yeah.
Essential person's like, like they're not, that doesn't resonate with them. But every company needs someone who's driven like that, And then there's an artistic dimension that the sensual person can sort of bring into that.
Yeah.
And then like a vain person would be incredible for marketing. So you see
all
how
of
this
is incredible for marketing. Just so you know, like this framework you're presenting is what we call the marketing drivers.
Okay.
These are emotional drivers that make people react and activate to purchase.
Right.
Right. So, for instance, like if you make somebody feel lustful, through a cologne ad or a perfume ad, you see a beautiful woman scantily clad and she's spraying this and then she's walking into a room and all the men are attracted to her and she's, like those, you're putting that idea of our product can create a lustful situation for you to have things attracted to you. So you're playing with the emotion of the people. So the advertising industry drives on this. They thrive on this.
Right.
They've literally adopted the 7 deadly sins as their marketing strategies.
Right. Yeah. So is
that a bad thing?
I think
in your eyes?
I think it's very human. I think it's part of because it's part of our identity of how we're created. I think the marketing strategy a little bit is towards the negative side of that identity, and rather instead of the more positive, creative side of how God created us. So let's bring that example about lust, or sensuality. Like, there's nothing wrong with a beautiful woman. Like that's awesome. The lust part is when you want to just consume her and have her for yourself, especially if you're not married or you already are married. So
and that's being greedy at that point, isn't it?
Yeah. So the sins will over interlap. They just spiral. But the first, the sort of the bait, is hooked is sensual, vain, or pride. It's one of those areas. So in regards to for example, lust, like if you see a beautiful woman, it's so good to just acknowledge that. And then, for example, in seminary, like they teach you early on, before you see the beauty of a woman, beauty in general. So they'll teach you to go to art museums. Like we study courses on art, nature, learning scientific beauty, learning just the beauty of a child, beauty of life, beauty of music. So once you get that, then you can understand a woman without lusting, without the negative connotation for that.
Right.
Does that make
Yeah, because in essence they're basically muting down the idea of
the sinful side?
the sinful side of
Yeah.
it, just categorizing beauty as a woman could be beautiful, a plant could be beautiful, an art could be beautiful, a child could be beautiful. So it has less meaning.
Right.
But come on, when you see a striking woman, you're still not like, oh damn, like she's
Well, absolutely, and there's nothing there. That's human. There's nothing wrong with that.
right.
The problem is it's almost as if we're putting sugar. Like sugar's attractive, but it comes and goes. It comes and
Right.
goes. So sin is always fleeting.
Right.
You know, you're a stealer. You rob $1 million, and I don't know if you saw Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
You know, like the idea of him just being powerful was what
Yeah.
he didn't even know what he was after.
Right.
But once you conquer sin, it just spirals you to the next sin. It doesn't give you fulfillment.
Right.
But when you're tapping into these areas, like you met your wife, you saw her, like, wow, there's something here. You get to understand her personality, who she is, obviously her flaws and her good points. But that like you said, a little bit of that lust at the beginning was the kickstart, the energy, in a good way,
right.
to get
Coupled
you to
with the greed to want her for myself.
but like a good greed, I guess you could say, like a good,
There's got to be a little.
There's a good,
that works as drivers and
Yeah.
motivators in some level. When they become too much an obsession and then it goes over the top, then it gets to the place where it could be really bad.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just feel like when it comes to things like greed and money, right? Like there's a lot of powerful people. Do you think any of them would have achieved what they achieved if there wasn't a high level of greed in them?
I think so.
And throw some lust in there.
Yeah.
We'll sprinkle a little lust in there. Lust for the lifestyle.
The lifestyle, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say as long as every person's different, unique. So as long as there's some type of peace that comes from it. The drive is, I mean, these high performing athletes, these high performing businessmen, you do need to execute on a high level. Now, does it make you turn? There's a certain point where if you don't do it correctly, obviously without challenge, you're going to turn into a monster. You're going to turn into something that you didn't want to be.
Yeah.
And so, do we want mediocrity? Absolutely not. But that's where your like there needs to be some type of middle balancing point. There needs to be something that can sort of guide you and direct you, and that I call that conscience.
Yeah.
So in these 7 capital sins, I guess you could say, to understand sort of those desires, that energy, it's really a gift of God, I guess you could say. But where that's directing you is needs to be moderated in a certain sense.
Right. So if one could, in theory, harness the power of the 7 deadly sins for the good, now we're on to something.
That's literally Catholicism right there.
Okay.
That's a summary of the morality of Catholicism. Catholicism is more about the relationship with God, but he gave us these realities for that. So if you're an incredible businessman, you have that power. I mean, St. Charles Borromeo, Italian guy, Carlo Borromeo, but he's a cousin. He's a cousin's cousin. Cugino. He was a brilliant businessman and a lawyer, and he was made a cardinal, not even being a priest.
Really?
So he was on the Vatican, this is 15th century, the board, making huge in his 20s.
Wow.
He was like, this guy is brilliant. And he was made to be one of the advisors of the Pope because of his of being that brilliance, and he harnessed it. Obviously, he became a priest and then a saint, but that's the goal. Like someone who's holy they don't need to be a priest or religious. It can be a media dude like you. You could be Saint Frank. Imagine that. So like you harness your ambition, your pride, your lust for influence. There's nothing wrong with that if you're doing it for your good. Now, if you're just trying to get your name out there and pocketing all that and like, look at me.
Yeah.
And for yourself, well, no, like you want to build an empire, you want to inspire younger people. And I see your social media stuff. Like you're teaching other people how to do it. Like you're not selling it.
No, I like honestly.
You want to get it out.
I want to provide value.
Yeah.
Like I've done this.
I've
I've climbed to the highest levels I could in this industry.
Right.
Became an author, became a TV host, toured the world, spoke on huge stages. I got a blueprint that I could share with people, and that's the value that I want to give back. So did I use greed and gluttony and all that stuff to kind of get me there? Sure, of course. And there's moments where, if to get the accolades and the vanity of sitting on stage and people cheering for you and clapping and wanting to sign pieces of paper with your picture on it, it's a surreal experience at times.
It's awesome, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. No, if you harnessing it for eventually for something that can help people.
Let me challenge you a little bit. Is there someone in your mind right now that's on the verge of that potential, where they're striving for something sort of in a sinful, sort of in a good way, but you're like, you know what? Go to this side a little bit. Like, does someone come to mind on that tier, whether personally it's business
or no, honestly, there's somebody in the media world that like I have true sympathy for, who's Justin Bieber.
Okay.
This kid,
great example.
This kid was brought into the talented kid, brought into to Hollywood, into the music industry, and rose to the top of it all.
Right.
And sold his soul along the way.
Yeah.
Whether he was tricked into
He's coming back a little bit though, right?
Yeah.
Ish.
This is what's disturbing about it.
Okay.
He's in the press because he's having a lot of instability, it looks like.
Right.
And I don't know him personally, but I'm just what I've read.
What you've seen and
what I've seen is a broken person who needs and there's moments where he found God and he posts stuff about prayer and meeting certain people within and then you see like recent clips where he might be getting divorced from his wife and just looks troubled and the stories with the P. Diddy case coming out that he was molested at these parties and all of Hollywood took advantage of him, and you see clips of like Ellen DeGeneres and all these people just literally manhandling him like he's a piece of meat.
Right.
And I have sympathy for this kid who, of course, gave in to gluttony, gave into lust, gave into vanity, gave into all this because that's what Hollywood is, right? It's like they prop you up to be this to inspire other people to do the same.
Yeah.
Well, he's somebody, if you ask me for an example of like who's on the cusp of coming back and forth on the whole,
Imagine if instead of me it was him.
Yeah.
You would probably be very motivated to just try to challenge him a little bit, be like, hey, you're almost there, right? Yeah. You'd have that desire because you can see it because you have more experience and you're older and you know the evils that this industry could lead you to.
Absolutely.
But you would be very motivated to do that, right?
Absolutely.
You see how motivating my job is now?
Yeah.
This is literally what I do day after day. Like I feel like I'm doing it a little bit with you here.
Yeah.
But just to take people's desires, I guess the 7 deadly sins, because that's where the energy comes from. Take that and to channel it and to see where the virtue is in that. So a believer isn't someone who's praying the rosary and doing processions, and it's not that. It's living day to day with faith-filled spiritual actions.
Yeah.
And when this, what I like about what spirituality does, it gives you a deeper understanding of true things. Like there's truth to a certain level that is experiential and scientific, but then on top of that, there's almost like a code. It's like a spiritual DNA of how everything exists, the whole cosmos.
Yeah, you know what we call that in
what
layman's terms?
Go ahead.
The quantum field.
Quantum field. Okay.
We can get into quantum science, which explains scientifically what you're saying. In my mind, it's the unseen, it's the untangible, but it absolutely exists, and it absolutely resonates with the idea that every cell and everything from the furniture to you are vibrating energetic field that interact with the world, that interact with each other to create the vibe, to create the moments in life. So similarly, you call it spirit, I call it
quantum field
and energy.
Well, I guess we did that with the 7 capital sins.
Yeah,
a little bit. But I would love to. I don't know if we have time in this episode, but you were in that whole industry of
Hollywood.
The documentary you did about the esteem,
vanity.
the 5. What was it?
It was Lords of Esteem.
Lords of Esteem. I think processing a little bit of what vanity, how the good side of it, and sort of how people make big bucks off of plastic surgeons.
Huge.
All these different, the whole image of weightlift. I mean, my brother lifts too. He's been competitive as well, and there's something healthy about it. I saw in my own brother how it helped him sort of take a personality and
Definitely,
you
and confidence. It builds confidence. You know,
know, so there's there's a lot
great
of good
stuff
to it,
from
right?
strength, and you know, when I was competing on stage, you know, I started competing at 13.
Oh yeah, early
You know,
on.
so
So like, what got you into that?
so my uncle was a
Your
bodybuilder,
uncle,
and I used
okay.
to, as a kid, go, you know, watch him, and I go to the bottom of the stage, and I watch him flexing and posing, and you know, ripped muscles. I'm like, God, one day I want to be like that, and he would like kind of, you know, encourage me to do it, and I started training. And
13,
then,
you started lifting?
yeah, I started lifting at 13, and then like by 14, 15, I was like the biggest kid in my school, and
Nice.
took it serious. And then at 15, I competed for the first time, won Mr. Teenage Long Island
15?
at 15.
What? You never
And
told, wow,
you
that's
know,
awesome.
it takes a lot of chutzpah to go up on stage at 15 in
Yeah.
a tiny little bikini.
Yeah.
You know, like spray tan down, so you're
Okay.
like literally as dark as you possibly could be, and then
Okay.
you go through this posing routine on stage with all sorts of music, and you're doing like almost like a little mini dance routine.
Okay.
And then you're being judged by your peers. You literally have a row of adult judges, and then 1,000 people watching.
Okay.
You know, and clapping and cheering on if you're good.
Right.
So was there vanity involved with that? Absolutely. But there was also this strength that came from it, this confidence that came from it. So there was some good in that.
Okay.
And then as I progressed, you know, throughout the years, I competed a bunch more,
Right.
got into soccer, and then, you know.
Got it. So in this field, you know, you would say it was a great experience for you overall.
Yeah, I did like
being in this field specifically, what would you say the dangers of that vice of vanity would be? Like, say you spiraled the other way.
Yeah.
How would you have turned into a monster with the vice? Like, how would it consume? There you go.
Steroids
Great example.
Were prevalent, and everyone around me was on steroids at the time, and not just like TRT, hormone replacement, like they do today. I'm talking like massive amounts of steroids to make you like a beast, a monster.
Right.
And I knew people that took massive amounts and were monsters, not just physically, but mentally. They were just medieval type of people that would literally hurt people. And that was partially due to their personalities as well as the drugs, you know.
So when you were presented with steroids, you were young, 16,
I was young.
17,
I was 15, 16. And then
why did you make that decision and say, you know, I'm not going to fall into this vice? Or like what this made you decide?
My hearing my mom and dad's voice, you know.
No drugs.
No drugs. And then also seeing these other guys who were doing it and who were not well, you know, like they were literally insane, like leg breakers, you know, that would go around and hurt people.
Wow.
You know, so seeing that, I was like, I always knew I was a good kid. Like I still am a good person. I have a good moral compass.
Right.
Wherever that comes from. You know, my parents didn't make
conscience.
me go to church. Conscience,
I had
baby.
Conscience.
So
conscience.
I never wanted to hurt anybody. If somebody tried to hurt me, I'd hurt them back. But I never outwardly went to just cause trouble and start problems. So that wasn't my nature. But, you know, what I found fascinating was the acceptance I got for being that big.
Mm.
And nobody messed with me in school. You know, like it created a certain like armor for me that gave me a certain level of confidence to be able to kind of accelerate in life. And I do attribute my overall success to those times where I grinded it out in the gym, worked hard, won competitions, was not afraid to get up there. People, you know, like my cousins, everyone my age, my friends were like, oh, dude, isn't that embarrassing? And I was like, no, I mean, I kind of like, and then that kind of like started my career in like being in front of people and the cameras and all that stuff. So I really young, I got rid of that anxiety.
Stage fright, right?
The stage fright to like, you know, just put myself out there.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's a perfect example of how with a vice, you can use it for something good.
Positive. Yeah.
Do we want to
But I'll tell you this, there's also negatives of this.
Okay, this is what I want to hear. Yeah.
And so
a little confession going on.
When I was bodybuilding, there's just like in Hollywood, somebody like I told you Justin Bieber story happened to me in the bodybuilding world. There's all these like judges and experts and trainers and dietitians and fans around the male bodybuilding community that are nefarious. They're not there for the good of the industry. They're there to take advantage of young men in that situation.
Yeah.
So I was approached a lot to pose in magazines, to do private posing sessions for money and all that stuff. And like they were literally trying to groom me at that age to fall into a side of that world that is dark.
Yeah.
And again, whatever, and I'm a risk taker. Like I will go for things that I didn't go for, but generally I'm like, I'm game, dude. Let's go. Let's check it out. If it's going to, increase my future, it's going to increase my potentials, then I'm going to explore it. That was the one thing I didn't,
What made you?
It didn't feel right. So like I knew, because I knew other people older than me that would tell me like, that guy is a creep.
Yeah.
He's going to promise you a cover of a magazine. He's going to promise you a huge future in bodybuilding. Absolutely don't do it.
We call that conscience.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Compass. Like I call it like a compass.
Compass, conscience.
Yeah.
But like you're forming it so well.
Yeah.
And your convictions that I think that was a great experience for you to be able to have that opportunity and then fulfillment for you even to approach it and
absolutely. But like that idea of like dangling that possible fame and future to somebody that young, to say you'll be the next guy.
Yeah,
I would say 90% of my peers did it,
right,
and went down that route and got themselves in the situation.
90%,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Imagine being 15, 16 years
old. You don't
know.
Money's at your door.
They're offering your money, fame. Top of this industry where it's like a
vice,
testosterone driven. Like not only you're the best at your thing, but you're the best in a thing that's filled with monsters, filled with big dudes, filled with strong guys who you're the strongest guy. You're the most ripped guy. You're the best looking guy. Like, so there's all these vanity things that layered all of that.
Right.
That was like, made it super hard to say no to.
Right. Yeah.
And then I did.
That's a true blessing. I'm glad that you were protected to that. And what, for the viewers, what I like about this example is sometimes maybe in more of a orthodox Puritan mentality is any of that, we avoid it because there's the temptation, the possibility of abuse or vanity. And so we don't even approach it. But I think how you've approached it was very, I guess, like it was in your moral compass and you were able to help people. So, and through that experience, I bet you if whatever Justin Bieber was here today, you probably share a similar story.
Definitely.
To be able to be relatable.
Sure.
And to sort of coach him.
Yeah.
On that note. So it's different that as a priest trying to coach someone in that, but you being in the industry saying it has a deeper impact. Yeah, you've lived it.
Literally lived it. That's why I can really connect with that and see him in pain, even though I don't know him. You could just tell in somebody's eyes when they're, and I believe he actually went to the dark side because he had to.
Okay.
Like he had to get to the level of fame he has.
Right.
And I believe most Hollywood does.
Right.
But, listen, it's a crazy world out there.
This is why when I asked you that question, does anyone come to mind? And we chose someone a little more generic.
Yeah.
I would also challenge you, we don't have to say it now, but I also challenge you because you have that gift and experience to coach and inspire someone that is in this field that it can tend towards a vice more than a virtue. Hey, I've known, I've been watching you. You're really good at this. If take the advice or leave it, and then you give them your 2 cents. I think that would go because they're not paying you. You have no relation. It's a free will offer, but you're trying to make this world, I guess, a better place by commenting on this experience you had. So I think this is where that desire can also inspire us to. This is how the world's going to change. It's not just through new policies and laws. No. It's one-on-one good people trying to spread on a spirit. You're helping them with their compass.
Yeah.
That's how we're going to change this world, one person at a time.
I agree. And I would button it with this. When you're young and impressionable, you think that you have like one shot. You think if I don't do this thing, I'll never get this opportunity again. And I'm living proof that shoot the shot, use your moral compass, because there's a lot more shots coming. Just choose the right one.
Amen.
Amen. Just be discerning on, when it looks too good to be true, the saying is true. It is too good to be true.
It's too good. Amen.
It always is.
Yeah.
It always. When my parents used to tell me that line, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. It's freaking true.
Yeah. Amen. I love it. And hey, just a little personal secret. I mean, I've always wanted to do something like this where like I'm on screen.
Yeah.
And look, here we are.
Here you are.
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
something
awesome.
driven, vanity driven a little
Yeah.
bit, but like I'm doing it to try to influence
Yes.
it in a positive way.
You're doing a
So-
good job.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're almost influencing me.
Oh, yeah, almost.
You're
Hey,
this close.
We got like 30 more episodes
Yeah,
before,
I think
before that happens.
By the time we're done with season 10, I think you might get.
Or maybe you're already converting, you're just milking it.
Yeah,
so we can have
maybe.
more
We'll
episodes.
see. We'll see. You have to tune in to see.
All right,
Good
thank
job.
you for tuning in. All right. In this episode, we talked about the 7 capital sins or 7 deadly sins. And for every deadly sin, there is a virtue. And as Catholics, we believe in a life of virtue. We believe in avoiding sin, but also doing the good. God has given us special gifts and talents for very specific virtues that we have to discover. So I challenge all of you to go deep into what areas you might be struggling in and hone in on the virtue you feel that is easy for you to practice, such as maybe humility, docility, to counter pride, vanity, and sensuality. So stay strong, be men and women of virtue, as that's a way to show your true faith. God bless you all and have a great time until the next episode. Take care.